Hello first year string players. This is a review of lesson 4, and this lesson was all about the bow. I know many of you have been patiently waiting for this day, and it's finally here. This lesson was broken into several sections. We started by using a pencil to help us develop a beautiful bow hold. Once we have a beautiful bow hold, we moved on to looking at our bow and going over some safety and care instructions to make sure our bow stays in good shape while we use it. Then we took our beautiful bow hold from our pencil and transferred it to the bow. And finally, I have some bowing exercises for you to work on this week. So let's jump right into it. Grab your pencil. You can follow along with me at home. And even if you were in the lesson, I would recommend still doing that because as you remember, there were a lot of steps and specific things that you have to do with each finger to get your bow hand, your bow hold to be beautiful. So the first thing we do for a beautiful bow hold is we are going to take our right hand, that's the hand you hold your bow with, and we are going to shake it out 3 times, 1, 2, 3, and drop it at our side. When you drop it at your side, everyone's hand should naturally do the same thing. You should have, and I'm keeping it frozen, you should do the same thing. You should have your fingers slightly curved, and there should be a little bit of a space between each of them, right? So they're kind of down, but they're slightly curved, and there's a space between each of them. Okay. Now, when we do this, when we do our bow hold, obviously we hold our bow with our right hand. That's the one we've been plucking with. But we need to stabilize our pencil with our left hand. You can think about how when you're playing an instrument, your bow would be resting on the string. Depending on what instrument you have, it would be a different way. But we want to make sure that we are having our hand free to do all these movements. So keep your left hand on the pencil this whole time. So we're going to shake our hand out 3 times, our right hand. 1, 2, 3, drop it, bring it on up, keep your hand frozen the way it is. And you're going to take the pencil and position it behind your fingers, and the pencil is touching. I know it's kind of hard to see, there we go. It is touching my fingers, I have it pressed up against it, and I've lined it up with the first knuckle of my index finger. So I have my hand like this, and I line the pencil up with the first knuckle of my index finger. There, that's a better view. Do you see that? So that's the first step to a beautiful bow hold. Some students, if they have their arm up like this, and I naturally do this too, are going to need to relax their arm a little bit. It should almost look like you're about to, that you're hanging off of a cliff, right? If this was up here and I was hanging down, but with your arm a little bit higher up. Okay, so your arm is basically parallel to the floor. So if you're feeling and seeing that your arm is up like this, relax your arm a little bit, okay? But I still have that pencil lined up with the first knuckle of my index finger. From here, you are 2 to 3 steps, depending on your instrument, away from a beautiful bow hold. But let's practice how we got there, and then I'll tell you the next step. So we're going to shake our hand out. 1, 2, 3, drop it, bring it up, keep it frozen, keep those fingers curved and the spaces between your fingers. Line that pencil up with the first knuckle of your index finger. The next step to a beautiful bow hold is to bend your thumb and put it against the pencil. Okay? Your thumb should look like a banana. It should be bent like this. We don't want straight thumbs, and I can't do this, but many students can. We don't want thumbs bent in. So if you are double jointed, many students are able to do that and bend their thumb in. It should be bent out. This joint pops out. Okay, and you have this curve here. So we have our fingers like this. Bring your hand down if you need to, and then your thumb goes like this, bent right up against the stick. We're not going to let go, but if you did, this would be holding it in place. It's your thumb that's holding right there, okay? So now we are 1 to 2 steps away from a beautiful bow hold, depending on your instrument. So let's practice how we got there. So we're going to shake, 1, 2, 3, drop our hand, bring it on up, keep it frozen with those fingers spaced apart, put that pencil behind your first knuckle, make your thumb look like a banana and put it up against the pencil. Now this is the step that is different depending on the instrument you play. If you play violin or viola, you are going to pop your pinky on top like this. You see, I just moved it up, okay? If you play the cello, I'm going to make this optional. Many cello books say to keep your finger down. However, I actually have worked with several cello players who put their pinky up. So I'm going to leave it up to you, cello players. And then if you are a bass player, your pinky stays down. So this is not a step for bass players. Okay, and from here we are 1 step away from a beautiful bow hold, but let's practice how we got here. So you're going to shake, 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 Drop your hand, bring it up, keep it frozen, keep those fingers spaced apart, nice and relaxed and curved. Put that pencil behind the first knuckle of your index finger, drop your hand down, bend your thumb like a banana and put it against the stick. If you are a violin, viola, or cello who has decided to do this, pop your pinky up on top of the stick. Now you are one step away from a beautiful bow hold. The last step that some of you might do naturally is to have your hand tilted to the left a little bit, just like this. So you can see how instead of having my fingers straight up and down, they almost look like they're leaning on my index finger. Okay, this is a beautiful bow hold. I have, if you are supposed to have it, my pinky on top, my hand is curved towards the index finger. I have nice spaces between my fingers. My thumb is in the back. It's right up against the pencil or the stick when it's the bow, and it is bent. It's bent with the joint popped out. That's a beautiful bow hold. Let's practice this one more time now that we have all of the steps. So we're going to shake, 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 drop our hand, bring it on up, put that pencil behind the first knuckle of the index finger, lower your hand if you have to, your arm, thumb like a banana against the pencil. If you're a pinky person, pop that pinky up and then tilt your hand to the left. This is a beautiful bow hold. And it might take some practice to do this. Remember, I've been playing violin for longer than you all have been alive, so I'm able to just go, boom, there's my beautiful bow hold. But when I was your age, I had to go through and do the steps. So this is something good to practice, even just if you have a pencil. So you can do this on the school bus. You can do this in class when you're not supposed to be doing work. Don't do this while your teacher is teaching, right? You can do this all different places if you have a pencil, so you can practice that bow hold. And then in a moment, we are going to transfer it to our bow. But first, let me tell you a couple of things about the bow. So here is my bow. And the first thing that I always like to tell students is when you're holding a bow, it's like you have an extra long arm. And so you need to be very careful that as you are using your bow, as you're walking through your house or your classroom or wherever you are, that you're keeping it close to your body, that you don't have your arm out, because then you're either going to knock things over and your parents or teachers will not be very happy with that, or you will break your bow, right? So keeping your arm close to your body, you don't want to have your arm up. I have very high ceilings in my classroom, so I won't hit them, but in most homes, you probably could extend your arm up and you would hit the ceiling. So keeping your bow close to you at all times. The next thing is while your bow is in the case, it should always be in the loose position. And what I mean by that is that you can see my bow hair and the stick are very close together. I have loosened my bow, and it should always be loose when it is in the case and you're not playing. When you do play, you need to tighten your bow by tightening this screw on the bottom, and you do that by turning it to the right. If you turn it too much, it actually can break the bow. So the guideline that we use is you want there to be about a pencil width, you can use your pencil again, in the middle. So not on the sides, but in the middle. You should be able to really easily, and you see I have a little bit more space, but you should be able to really comfortably fit the pencil in there. You don't want to have to wedge it in. That means it's not tight enough. But if you can really comfortably get that pencil into the middle, that's generally a good sign that you have the correct tension on your bow. So tighten it before you play, and then before you put it back in the case, you want to loosen it. But I'll keep mine tight because I'm going to be playing in a minute. The next thing is about the hair on the bow. This bow hair and all bow hair is made from horsehair. And when they collect the horsehair to put on bows, they do all sorts of things to it to take, and they put chemicals on it to take the oils and other things that naturally occur in hair out of it. And so we don't want to put any oils or other things back into the hair, and so we need to make sure that we are not touching the bow hair. Our skin just naturally has oils that our body produces, and if you do touch the bow, if you touch it once on accident, it's not the end of the world, right? But if you regularly are touching your bow hair, it's going to ruin the bow hair to where you can't make a sound with it. I shared with students in class that I, several years ago, had a student who must have held their bow like this in the middle, and when they returned their bow at the end of the year, there was a big yellow patch right on the bow where they had held around it. And when you got to that patch as you were playing, the sound just completely stopped. There wasn't any way to get sound out of the bow. And so since bows are expensive and they're things that we want to take care of, we want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to make it last a long time. That includes not touching the hair. So you can see this whole time as I've been holding my bow, I'm either holding it by the stick or holding it down here near the frog. That's what we call this part down here, the frog of the bow. And so I'm making sure, taking great care to not touch the bow hair. Okay. Finally, most students in their case should have something that looks like this. It's called rosin. I know there are some students who do not have rosin in their case, and I actually have run out of rosin over here in the high school, so I will order more, but they are going to have to be a little bit patient with me until it comes. So when you take it out of the case, and it comes in a variety of shapes and sizes, so if yours doesn't look the same, that's okay. But it's going to look something like this. Rosin is made out of tree sap. It's hardened tree sap that you rub onto the hair of the bow to create friction between the bow hair and the string. So a good rule of thumb is that every time you're going to play, you do about 5 swipes of rosin. 1, 2, you can see I'm just swiping against the rosin with the bow hair. 3, 4, 5. Okay, students who don't have rosin, they can use mine when they're in class. We're just going to have to deal with it until it comes in. I apologize about that. But most students do have this in their case. So we're going to put that away. That's all of the safety and care instructions about our bow. So let's move on to how to have a beautiful bow hold with the bow. So you can take a look down here. This is the spot that I said is called the frog, this area down here. And you can look, there's a little metal piece right here on everyone's bow. That's a very important part of the bow because that's how we are going to line up our beautiful bow hold. So when you shake out your hand and drop it and bring it on up, the way you are going to line up your bow hold is to make sure that your middle finger is touching the metal. So I will often say middle on the metal. You want your middle finger lined up with the metal. And then the stick of the bow, that's this top part, will still be lined up with the first knuckle of your index finger. So you can see that with that, minus the hair part and this little section down here, this looks like a pencil, right? And so we're doing a very similar thing to what we did with the pencil. That's why we start with the pencil. So we're going to hold your bow up. Your bow tip should be pointing to the left. And with your left hand, you're going to hold it by the stick to stabilize the bow. So keep your left hand on the bow the whole time we're doing this. I know I have a dark shirt against the dark bow. It's going to be a little bit harder to see, but I'll try to get close to the camera so you can see as I go. So we're going to shake our hand out. 1, 2, 3, drop it. Bring your hand on up. This time your middle finger is going on the metal, okay? And I'm going to move my hand up or down until the stick is aligned with the first knuckle of my index finger, okay? There we are. Drop your arm if you need to. Then I'm going to take my banana thumb, I'm bending it, and I'm putting it up against the stick, like this. I'm not putting it in this little groove. Even if you can fit it there, it goes against the stick. Imagine the pencil, right? We didn't have this groove on the pencil, so you don't need that groove now. We had a beautiful bow hold with the pencil. So I have my fingers here. I bring that thumb underneath like this, okay? The next thing, if you're a pinky person, pop that pinky on top, and then the very last step, give that hand a tilt so it looks like you're leaning on your index finger. And that is a beautiful bow hold. So that's something you will want to practice, and notice how I never let go with my left hand. I don't expect students to be able to have a bow hold and just go around like this because it's brand new. I expect that most of you will need to stabilize your bow, take the majority of the weight out of it so you can just focus on getting your fingers in the right spot for the beautiful bow hold, okay? So keep practicing this until you have it down. Now, once you have your beautiful bow hold down, there's a couple of things that I want you to practice. First of all, you should be able to take your bow with your beautiful bow hold and place it in the sweet spot. The sweet spot is between this called the bridge and this called the fingerboard, right in here. Your bow should always be in here when you play. When we did pizzicato, we plucked over the fingerboard, but when you play with the bow, it should be in the sweet spot the whole time. We'll take our bow with our beautiful bow hold and place it in the sweet spot, and it should be parallel or moving in the same direction as the bridge, like this. This is not parallel, so if you see that your hand looks like that, you'll need to move your hand forward. See how I'm doing that? This is not parallel, so if you see it look like that, you'll have to pull your hand back, right? So you want to be in the sweet spot with your bow parallel to the bridge. Once you are there, you can do what I call rainbows, which means you're going to take your bow and rock back and forth over every string, touching every single string with your bow hair. This doesn't make any sound, but it's a good way to practice the angle that you will need as you play each string. And again, the whole time, see, I'm keeping my beautiful bow hold. I'm never going to something like this. You will not be able to play successfully with a bow hold like this. So keeping that beautiful bow hold, touching every string, and eventually let's stop on your lowest string, whatever string that is for your instrument. And what we practiced doing was long bows on open strings like this. When I do a long bow, I'm opening up my elbow. I'm not moving from my shoulder. I'm opening my elbow up to make a nice long bow. Even if you're a cello or bass, you're opening your elbow up this way. Okay? And so one of the assignments is also for students to be able to play full bows on every string. You should stay in the sweet spot the whole time. If you notice you're getting over the fingerboard, you may need to adjust your arm forward or backward. This is a good thing to practice in a mirror. We don't have sheet music to look at when we're doing this, so you can look in a mirror, make sure that your bow is staying in the right spot and that your arm is looking like you're opening it up, right? Opening that elbow, okay? So those are the big things for the week. Oh, and let me show you one other thing. This is what it will look like if your bow is going out of the sweet spot. Okay, so you want to make sure, and by the way, I was also playing 2 strings there, so you want to play 1 string at a time, staying in the sweet spot, nice, big, full bows. It's going to be loud under your ear. It's much louder, especially for violin, viola, to play with the bow than to do pizzicato. But that's part of playing your instrument. So really dig into that string, make a nice, big, full tone as you are playing. And make sure that you're just playing 1 string at a time. Now, we talked about this in class, that your 2 middle strings will be harder to stay on because they each have 2 strings surrounding them on each side. So you have to make sure that you stay right at that perfect angle for those middle strings. Have some grit while you're doing this. I know it is tough, and we will continue to work on this in future weeks. Okay, so this week, what I would like you to work on, we're doing beautiful bow hold with the pencil first, then transfer it over to the bow. Practice having your rainbows where you're in the sweet spot, doing your full bows, and then there was one more bonus assignment for students who would like to do this. Let me just put my violin down. Okay, so if you are really pumped about using the bow and you want to play some actual music with your bow, you can look at all of our past assignments. So think about the first week we had the cake song and shepherd's dance and all of those things. Then we had the amazing world of note reading, and last week, lesson 3, we had the hamster who dreamt he could fly. You can do all of those songs using your bow. So your bonus assignment is to go through and play some of those with your bow. Anytime that you would have plucked, you move your bow instead. I like to eat cake. Okay? So that's lesson 4. I know it's a lot. We are going to keep working on it, but I have to say I was very impressed with the students who I saw in person this week. They had a lot of grit, they were good listeners, and they really were able to get a good start on that bow hold. Okay? So everyone have a good week. I will see you in your next lesson.